Okay, let's do that. Like I said, we're going to get going here in a couple seconds, just letting everything get set and filtered on in. All right. All righty, let's get going here. Good afternoon. Welcome back to another NGSBA webinar. My name, of course, is Michael Quedal, Quality Controls for the New Jersey School Boards Association, and thank you so much for coming back and joining us today as we talk about today's topic, AI enhanced data protection for K-12 and executive leadership. Join us this afternoon for an insightful webinar tailored for K-12 school districts, where we will explore the role of AI in both strengthening and challenging data security. For all of those in the room this afternoon on this gorgeous Tuesday afternoon, and for those who are currently here and stay for the duration of the presentation, will receive one Board Member Academy credit, one BMA credit. Just give us a couple business days for that to be reflected on your transcript due to it being a manual process on our end. A couple things regarding the Zoom features really quickly, as always. Towards the right side of your buttons, you will see the CC button. That is the closed captioning functionality. If you click that, it will allow you to view the closed captioning of this session. You'll also be able to view and save the entire transcript of the session if you need it. If you have a question, we definitely want to hear from you. The Q&A function is turned on, so any and all questions, please use the Q&A function. It's at the bottom of your screen, the button there. The chat is also turned on, so we definitely want to hear from you over there. If you want to drop us a comment, say hi, tell us where you're from. We love to hear from everyone. We love to engage with our audience on every webinar. Attendees of this webinar should be aware that the views expressed by non-NJSBA employees and outside speakers or panels are intended purely for informational purposes and do not necessarily represent the views, opinions, or mission of the New Jersey School Boards Association. NGSBA remains committed to providing nonpartisan and apolitical information, resources, and advocacy to advance public education and promote the achievement of all students through effective governance. I also want to say this really quickly before I turn it over. We rely heavily on our tech partners who are out in the field, who are out in the districts. You may be working with someone else. You may be working with Carasoft and Palo Alto Networks. You may be working with someone completely different. That is totally fine. This webinar is for informational purposes to help you make more informed decisions at the board table in your district and in your schools. Finally, today's session is being recorded and will be available through NGSBA's website, the SUGO site, everyone came in this afternoon. The slide deck will also be uploaded later this afternoon. Give me until tomorrow to upload the slide deck, and please, you're more than welcome to use that as a resource, and please share it within your district, including the recording. So, without further ado, it is now my pleasure to introduce Joe Randall, Director of Technical Solutions for Palo Alto Networks. Good afternoon, Joe.
Good afternoon. Really excited to speak with you guys today.
Absolutely. Welcome.
So today I'm going to be talking about AI enhanced data protection or cyber, how do we protect our own data with cybersecurity? So it's tailored towards K through 12 and executive type leadership. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you put them in the chat, I'll try to get to them probably towards the end, but pop them in before you forget them, and I'm happy to address them. With the buzz of generative AI and chat GPT, I think AI is top of mind for everyone right now. Whether somebody's in tech or not in tech, AI has had a profound impact on everyone, I think, these days, because it just allows us to do so much more, access data so much faster. I mean, we thought that accessing data, 20, 30 years ago when the internet started to become popular was fast. Now with AI and generative AI in particular, we just have everything at our fingertips in a minute's notice. And so with that, I mean, specifically to schools, this is a number from last school year. over 70% of high school students were using generative AI weekly. In the last 6 months, I would imagine this number has even shot up even more. Every school district is looking at AI. I even noticed that your school district has a policy and is adopting AI as a part of your guys' educational experience. I think this is super important. It gives us access to information so fast. There's so many advantages to it. And while we talk a lot about the advantages, I think we also talk about some of the challenges with AI. Does it replace that human experience? What are some of the ethical dilemmas with misusing this, right? With any tool, it can be misused. It can be used for cheating. I was just at my alma mater for my college reunion, and this was a question that we talked to the dean about was, how are you guys adopting AI? I think it's a topic of discussion that we should all be having on an everyday basis. But for today, what I really want to hone in on is the risk when it comes from a cybersecurity perspective. When we think about the data that's going in there and how AI can be used by the attackers out there, I think this is also a relevant element so that we can mitigate against that, just like you guys are doing with some of the more business side of leveraging AI with the policy that you guys already have published on your website and some of the documentation that you guys are already starting to build and leverage in the classrooms. But just like we're using AI for our advantage, so are the attackers out there. When we think about adversaries launching cyber attacks, AI can accelerate that rapidly. We look at how fast cyber attacks have evolved. They're using the power of that, not only that knowledge, but using AI to help automate faster, broader, and more effective attacks. And that can range from social engineering to exploitation of vulnerabilities in software to leveraging it for automation or just accessing the data that's received. So I'll talk about each of these elements. And then towards the end, I'm going to talk about how I recommend organizations like yourself mitigate that risk from a cyber perspective. And ultimately, how do we structure a program to make sure that we have not only the right policies in place, but whenever we're dealing with something like cybersecurity, it's not just policies and procedures, it's also how that integrates with people and technology. And so, number one, I think this is one of the strongest evolutions of how AI can be used in social engineering attacks. For those that aren't familiar, social engineering are attacks where you basically manipulate people to reveal confidential information. So these can be done through phishing emails, me masking myself, if I'm the attacker, masking myself as your credit card company and asking you to click on this link to pay your credit card bill, or leveraging it to fake, we see these deep fakes where you are faking a well-known person's voice, or tailgating, coming into somebody's office by just walking in behind them, leveraging their badge. So all of these different things can be used to collect personal information. So we see this quite often in the cybersecurity world, right? Because the weakest link of that chain, you can have the best technology in place, but you still have to implement that with people and processes. And oftentimes people aren't familiar. Your average user is not always, and even sometimes students, teachers aren't always familiar with cybersecurity and the risk these types of things take on. I always like to say that anyone, even cybersecurity experts, even myself, can fall victim to social engineering attacks. Because if they're really targeted, if I know everything there is to know about you, I can figure out a way for you to click on that link. I have a really close friend. This was 4 or 5 years ago. He's a very technical cybersecurity consultant. He did this event for his customers. And so he worked with this marketing agency to help him organize this. Well, he gets this PDF document in his email that says, "Hi, hi Johnny. Johnny, you need to pay your bill for this marketing." Sure enough, he clicks on it, right? He just worked with that company, right? And even as a cybersecurity expert that works on this every day, he clicked on that PDF unknowingly, assuming that it was safe because he worked with that marketing agency that the attacker was spoofing. So I like to say this is something that everyone needs to be vigilant on, and there's no amount of education that we can provide to our users that can absolve us from this level of risk. And with the evolution of AI being able to automatically generate content through a chatbot, you don't even need to be technical or creative to be able to generate some of these phishing emails and deep fakes that are out there these days. The other element that I think oftentimes when we think about cybersecurity, we think about that attacker in the basement with the hood over their head, the sunglasses in the dark, typing away at code, right? You see these, like Mr. Robot and some of these TV shows where there's, this guy coding in a kernel to attack a system and bypass the firewall and every buzzword in between. Well, there is some truth to that, right? All software, no matter, from your iPhone to your Android phone to your computer, right? Every day, every week, every day, you're getting these random notifications saying you have security updates. Well, all software vendors do that in order to patch or repair those vulnerabilities that they discover in that code, that software code that writes that application. So there's actually a formal process that software vendors apply to, and we call it CVE, or Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. And when these are published, the idea is that these are published so that people will patch their systems. Well, now attackers and bad actors, within 15 minutes of those published, they're scanning the internet for unpatched systems to be able to launch exploit attacks. And with the power of AI, this allows them to accelerate this even faster. They can start to automate that scanning. They can automate everything from looking at those CVEs to scanning the public internet to see vulnerable systems. And I point this out because this is something that's really powerful when we think about leveraging AI to exploit these vulnerabilities. I had an engineer out a few years ago when ChatGPT and generative AI was just kind of taking off, and he actually wrote a piece of malware that exploited a Windows machine, and he didn't do any of the coding. The chatbot did all of it. And so this has allowed adversaries and attackers to ultimately do this at scale. And you don't even need to have a technical background anymore, right? You can set up your own exploit, oftentimes, depending on the chatbot or the generative AI application used to create these scripts, to show you how to launch these scripts. And so I think that is really powerful when we think about the scope of what attackers can ultimately do, even with not having a technical background. And you can see this is really the scale and speed of these attacks has really dramatically gone down, especially in the past year, right? And this continues to go down because of AI and leveraging this to really supercharge these types of attacks that bad actors are using. And the third piece is probably the one that gets overlooked the most, right? We're using these chatbots and AI applications to really help us scale, help us be more productive, help us be able to generate content really fast, faster than we could do it on our own sometimes. But we have to remember what goes in can come out. And while some of these generative AI applications take security a lot more seriously than others, sensitive data going into these generative AI chatbots, those chatbots are learning from the data being put inside of them. And so, whether it's attackers leveraging that chatbot to pull information, whether it's on people, places, or organizations to launch some sort of an attack on them, or it could ultimately, they may have security to protect sensitive data that's inputted into their AI application. But if that organization gets attacked and they're able to leverage that data, now all of a sudden that adversary has all of that data at their fingertips. And so I think this is really the key that organizations K-12, but even extending outside of K-12, I think this is something that every organization really needs to start looking at is how do I control and prevent sensitive data from going into these generative AI chatbots? While they can really help us scale and be productive in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of advantages to them, we still need to keep that sensitive data controlled and protected. So transitioning into, okay, we know the bad guys do bad things. At the end of the day, AI is not something new to cybersecurity. This emergence and buzzword of AI over the past 2 or 3 years with ChatGPT and these generative AI bots that create content, AI has been around a lot longer than that. And we've been using it in cybersecurity for a long time, for 10, 15 years. And this has allowed us to do a lot of detection mechanisms that, when we think about detecting, these security solutions, whether it's detecting phishing emails or detecting unusual network traffic or even detecting malware or ransomware, being able to block that even though we've never seen it before. Cybersecurity, when we think about 10, 15 years ago, it was all about signatures. We would have our Norton antivirus on our machines. And everything was about how do I update that signature file? Well, cybersecurity has evolved a lot more than the days of those signature-based, antivirus protections on people's PC. Really, it's been leveraging AI for 10 or 15 years. So you oftentimes, when you talk to cybersecurity people and they're talking about, you bring up AI, oftentimes they'll immediately say, well, what do you mean by AI? Because there's a lot of variants of AI, whether it's, machine learning to be able to do predictive analysis or unsupervised machine learning to be able to do behavioral analysis and identify outliers. These types of elements have been in cybersecurity for a long time, and they just continue to evolve as we think about now adding generative AI to these applications to make people more productive in our software. But this has been a strength and an area that cybersecurity is really focused on for a long time. But when I think about K-12 organizations and how do I build resiliency with this emergence of AI becoming so popular, being adopted in our schools, being adopted by our teachers, being adopted by our administrators, I think that there's really three key elements that we need to look into. We need to really focus in on in turning this risk into resilience when we think about defending and protecting our data, both leveraging AI and from AI. So we'll go through each of these individually, but I think it really boils down to these three. The first one is visibility and control, I think is key, right? You can't control something you can't see. And so when we look at generative AI applications, oftentimes IT organizations really struggle to see and security teams struggle to see what applications are even being used. What are being used inside my school district? What are being used inside my offices? What data is being put into there? And so I think that's number one. We have to have tools that ultimately can provide us this visibility and more importantly, not only do we have to know what applications are being used, but we also have to know what data is going in there. Are they embedding malicious URLs for people to click on, right? Similar to the phishing emails, right? Not all AI applications are as safe as others. How do we analyze those AI applications, make sure that we have the right ones in place, right? And and more importantly, how do we control that? And so I believe that when we think about first, we have to have visibility and then we have to control it. And so when we think about controlling it, I think we need to start to divide these into three different categories of AI tools. And this is where a security team can build technical controls to make sure that every single generative AI app falls into one of these three categories. This is part of being able to really be able to make sure that people aren't using unsafe generative AI applications. So I really like to separate them into these three categories: sanctioned, tolerated, and unsanctioned. Sanctioned meaning these are applications that maybe you guys pay for. These are applications that you guys are thoroughly invested in. I would imagine you guys are, in talking to Michael, you guys use Zoom and Teams. These are AI applications that are taking place, right? This Zoom recording is being transcribed using AI and summarized and notes based on it. That makes it a sanctioned application. You guys have invested in it. You have license agreements with Zoom to make sure that your data stays safe. Well, we also have tolerated applications. And tolerated applications mean that, hey, I'm working with a vendor that needs me to use this application. And so in some cases, we have to restrict control over some of these applications on who can use it and when they can use it. And then for every other application, right, there's thousands of generative AI apps now. We have to start blocking these. And these are technical controls that we can put into place um, to ultimately put these conditions into play. We talked about control and visibility. Well, now we got to take it to the next level, right? Now that we know what applications that we're using, we need to protect that sensitive data that is going in or not going in to those applications, right? So we think about, oftentimes in the corporate sector, we think of source code, but we also need to think, when we think about K-12, we need to be thinking about student information, teacher data, right? You guys have systems that have social security numbers. You guys have systems that have sensitive data in there. And we need to make sure that we're careful in building not only technology, but people and processes that really focus security on the most critical data, the most sensitive data. And so from a technical perspective, there are ways that we can make sure that that sensitive data doesn't leave our organization. But that also ties into, we had to have visibility and we have to have control. And so now we can put in technical controls that ultimately will prevent that data leakage from leaving the organization. And this data leakage can have some serious effects. So out in California, there was a school district that had gotten all the social security numbers for all the students in the district. An attacker did, and they filed tax returns on all of them. Pretty clever when you think about that, because those kids might not even know that they put a tax return in until they finally put their taxes in when they turn 18. So that gives that adversary years upon years of filing taxes and getting those returns on. And the IRS it really struggles to keep up with this. Just mid last year, they had over 500,000 unresolved identity theft cases, just based on the volume that they get. And so protecting that sensitive data can have ramifications if it's leaked to the wrong people. And so this is just one example of these scams, but there's thousands of upon thousands of these different scams that people leverage this sensitive data to ultimately either make money or cause disruption based on the attacker's motivations. And this is why we need technical controls. And one of the key pieces of technical controls is something called data loss prevention. And this is something that security teams build out both on the network side, within the server infrastructure, and on people's laptops to make sure that sensitive data isn't leaking and going to the wrong places. Um, so this ties into not only do we have to have this technical control, but we have to have people and processes to be able to investigate those and ultimately put in those controls in a meaningful way. And the third piece is how do we fight AI with AI? When we think about our cybersecurity practice in our organizations, we need to be adopting more and more automation. You all saw on the earlier in the presentation the scale and speed that these attacks are happening. They're happening very fast. And so our teams, if we are manually investigating everything, we can't scale. We can't hire enough people to be able to handle these. Every day at Palo Alto Networks, we get 65 billion cybersecurity events. And so we, just like a school district, don't have unlimited people to hire to investigate every element. We have to leverage automation to be able to scale. A lot of these attacks nowadays, there's exfiltration happening within an hour. So within an hour of somebody clicking on a phishing link or an attacker running an exploit on a software vulnerability, they could be potentially exfilling sensitive data out of somebody's environment in less than an hour. That was not the case 10 years ago. That is something that has evolved and AI playing a factor into that. Here's an example of one of these types of attacks that took less than an hour, right? It was a social engineering example, a social engineering attack where an attacker basically called up a user, a domain admin, saying, "Hey, I need the password for X, Y, and Z because I need to fix this problem that a user's having." Well, that server admin provided the credentials that immediately allowed that attacker to have access and complete access to their whole infrastructure, every single server, and they were able to exfil data in less than an hour. Which, if you think about calling somebody up, using those credentials, and being able to launch this type of an attack in less than an hour, it takes me an hour just to get, to do a lunch order, right? This is very fast and a very simple attack. The attacker doesn't even necessarily need to be technical, right? They're just picking up the phone and getting username and password, and they could be following directions on a YouTube channel. And so when we think about that team that supports us, tying into the people, process, and technology that make up our cybersecurity practice, security needs to be real time and we need to leverage automation everywhere we can. We need to be continuously monitoring and responding to these at the same speed that attackers are doing it. And so the only way we do that is by really scaling out automation in a really meaningful way, to be able to neutralize these threats even without a human intervening. And when we think about cybersecurity, cybersecurity also ties into compliance, and compliance is super important, right? It is a baseline demonstrating that we're complying to keeping our organization safe, right? But complying to a regulation doesn't always mean that security is at the same level of meeting that compliance standard. They're essentially two separate scales. And while both are important, right? We need compliance to show to our stakeholders that we're protecting their data, but at the same time, security isn't always directly tied to those compliance regulations. And so when we think about compliance, we need to marry these two up as much as possible. And really, when I think about security, we need to start to automate how we do compliance. How do we comply? Not only making sure those tools can accelerate compliance, but also the reporting aspect of that compliance. And so compliance needs to complement security for it to have its maximum effectiveness. And probably the most fun topic when we think about cybersecurity is, hey, there's so many different cybersecurity companies. There's so many different tools. We've invested X amount of dollars in it. I wanted to share my thoughts on this because I have this conversation a lot because there's thousands of different cybersecurity vendors out there. And, there's a new tool for every new niche type of attack out there. And it's really hard to keep up with that. And so I boiled it down to kind of 5 things that I think when we think about cybersecurity and how we control costs that really I think, have the biggest impact on organizations to be able to, well, let's spend money, but let's spend it in the right way so that we're not buying double, triple, 3 times tools for the same thing and accomplishing the same outcome. So number one, I think organizations should really focus on consolidating tools, right? Oftentimes we think about, well, I got to integrate these tools. Well, if we can consolidate and leverage one tool to do multiple things and adopt a platform-based approach, it allows us to scale better. It allows us to reduce some of the hidden costs that I'll talk about in number 5. And in the cybersecurity world, when you're talking to some of your IT folks or cyber professionals, sometimes they'll say, "Well, I don't want all my eggs in one basket," and oftentimes that mindset was generated because of what I talked about earlier. When we used to use signatures, we used to want a million tools because at least one of them would catch it. But with cybersecurity solutions being AI based now, we don't need a million tools. We need technical controls at specific places within our environment, and they need to integrate into our processes. And so having all my eggs in one basket, and I don't mean that from a vendor standpoint, because consolidating tools doesn't necessarily equate to consolidating vendors. You could have one vendor that sells you 1,000 different tools, but you could also have one vendor that really helps you consolidate workflows, which is where we can really help to scale. And we've seen this in other areas of tech, right? Microsoft has been doing this with collaboration. Look at if some of you probably remember back in the days when we had WordPerfect, right? WordPerfect was a great word processor tool, but when Microsoft came out with the Office suite, I didn't need to buy 5 different Office tools anymore. I could just buy Office. Number 2, in K-12, there's a great program, and most of you are probably familiar with it, is the E-rate funding. This allows pretty significant discounts on cybersecurity tools and services that I think every school district should be leveraging and maximizing, because this is federal funding that's been allocated to protect our data and protect our students. Number 3 is sometimes gets kind of controversial with different school districts, but when we can share resources across districts, both from a tooling perspective, when we think about those cybersecurity tools that we need, but also from a staffing perspective, and we couple that with automation, now we start to be able to scale the information that we can protect. We start to be able to scale what the volume of attacks that we can handle. And so by being able to pool that tooling and the staffing, it can really help to reduce that total cost of ownership when we think about how much it costs to protect a user. And four, we talked about it a lot, but we can't hire enough people in cybersecurity. We can't find enough people that are qualified in cybersecurity these days. So we have to be able to heavily invest in automation. And that's both from a tooling perspective, but also from a consulting perspective. And then five is one that I would encourage all of you guys as your teams are probably you may be approvers of some of these solutions as they come across your desk. I would always ask some follow-on questions as your teams are investigating this, is because, when we think about buying these solutions, just because a firewall is you're comparing two firewalls doesn't mean that two firewalls are exactly equal, right? There's oftentimes lots of hidden costs that make up when you buy these solutions, from integration costs, implementation costs, maintenance costs, also productivity costs, right? If one product, when we think about some of these solutions out here, if one product can reduce the effect of alert fatigue, and alert fatigue is a real thing in cybersecurity, having way too many alerts, that also should play a factor in this decision making. And I would also look at incorporating risk management metrics into these total cost of ownership analysis. Most cybersecurity professionals have gone through some certifications that allow them to, even put dollar amounts on risk and the metrics associated with risk. So I would also start to incorporate that into kind of your buying process, because I think that also plays a factor into the total cost of ownership of these solutions. And as you would imagine, proactively doing this stuff ultimately saves organizations a ton of money when we think about having to respond reactively to an incident. And I know that there's lots, I have to get my last commercial in. So I hope this presentation was good and provided you some insights. I do want to do a quick elevator pitch on Palo Alto Networks. Our mission at Palo Alto Networks, as the largest cybersecurity company in the world, is to be your partner of choice, protecting our digital way of life, just as you guys are educating today's youth. We want to be your partner in the foxhole with you and protecting against the cyber criminals out there. We've been doing a lot around AI for 10 plus years. I've been with the company 8.5 years. And this is just, it's just phenomenal, the amount of innovation that we put into our products and our services to deliver the best quality outcomes from a security perspective for customers. We just released something that we've patented called Precision AI. And Precision AI is that mix of machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI to allow our customers to have the best outcomes, whether it's adopting one of any of our products, to have those security outcomes and protect their organizations and their sensitive data, ranging from network security to data loss prevention, to that function we call security operations, where we're ongoing kind of fighting the fires of attacks. And finally, we also have a services arm. A lot of the statistics I gave and stats today come from our Unit 42 threat research arm. We're constantly researching new and emerging threats, working with a lot of the three-letter agencies. But we also, with that expertise, provide some services to customers. So I always like to joke, when something bad happens, who are you going to call? I don't think it's Ghostbusters, but in this case, I would argue it's Unit 42. With that said, thank you for your time today. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate the presentation. A lot of great information. Yes, like Joe said, if you have any questions or anything at all, the chat is open. The Q&A is open as well. We definitely want to be able to answer any and all questions that may come in. If something comes in later today, later this week, next week, really whenever, don't hesitate to reach out to anyone at NGSBA. We'll be able to forward along to someone who will be able to answer that. Joe, do you want to put your email in the chat so everyone can have it if they do want to reach out directly to you? As always, you could always reach out to anyone at Carasoft as well, and say that you're a member of the New Jersey School Boards, and they'll get you in touch with the with the team that deals with the contract. So you could definitely can do that. Yep. Thanks, Joe. So, Joe, I have a question before we sign out here, and just to give everyone a minute if they do have any questions. You know, this AI landscape is changing so rapidly. You could really make a case that this is the most rapidly changing uh, industry and service, or you can even say, I mean, technology um, in the world right now, because it's everything's happening so fast, and I don't know if it's because AI is learning so quickly. I don't know about that, but you know, when ChatGPT first came out and that type of service, you know, the AI wasn't really artificial intelligence, right, Joe? Like that's more ChatGPT is a chatbot. They're farming information that's already publicly available on the web and regurgitating it out to the user in a way that humans can read it, right? It's not like original thought. It's like a chatbot. Is that correct, Joe?
Well, I mean, that's where the artificial intelligence comes into play. So it is original thought with these generative AI applications. So when you think about AI or artificial intelligence, there's a lot of different subcategories that go into it. The one we think about oftentimes is generative AI, which is the chat GPT kind of
Mhm.
chatbots,
Yeah.
which if you think when we define uh, that segment, we refer to it as generative AI. And what generative AI is that it's creating content and creating an original output. So when you think about most of, when you look at kind of 4 or 5 years ago and you put in a query, it would just spit out something that was related to those search words, right? It
Yes.
would analyze those search words. But in today's, these chatbots, they are creating original content.
So maybe this is off a little bit topic, but how can like those chat GPT detectors then detect that it was written? Are they picking up on keywords that and like flow of words? Like how does that work then?
So the coding in the background allows the chatbot to kind of truly understand how humans communicate,
Yeah.
and be able to analyze that and create that output. So it involves a lot of different elements of machine learning and deep
Yeah.
learning to transform content and develop relationships based on that prompt because it actually understands the prompt similar to kind of how a human brain works. The way that coding's been set up using something called long language
Mhm.
models allows those generative AI chatbots to output the
Okay.
original content.
So where do you see the landscape right now in like 5 years? I mean, is it going to look completely different? Are we just going to be, you know, AI, for lack of better words, on steroids? How is this going to look? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball in front of you, Joe, but I mean, you're in the space. You would know better than any of us. I mean, where do you see this going in 5 years from now? A lot can change, right?
I mean, I see every application adapting that generative AI types of chatbots, right? We've had regular chatbots where it would key in on keywords and
Mhm.
output those statements, right, for years and years and years. When
Yeah.
you go to a company and put in a support ticket and you say, can I help you? Well, now all those chatbots are going to start to really understand what you're asking about. I
Mhm.
mean, how many times have you put into those older chat bots? I need help with my computer or whatever the query may be, and then it outputs, oh, do this, and not even relative to what your original statement was. Well, the accuracy is just exploding with the investment organizations are putting into the development of these generative AI because they have such a big impact, right?
Yeah.
Uh, in what they can do for productivity. You think about, I know, like you think about those old chatbots, you still needed to call somebody to actually
Oh
get
yeah.
something done,
Yeah.
right?
I would just type in representative, representative, and then ultimately
Representative,
real
yeah. How many
human,
times can you press representative into the phone?
real human, please.
Well, with these generative AI chatbots, they can actually accommodate that.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
think we're going to know the difference soon.
and so in 5 years, I don't think you're going to know whether that's a chatbot or a human.
It's going to be a different world, Joe. And that's why we're bringing these webinars to you all. It's changing so rapidly. If you have any questions regarding anything that Joe talked about today, don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, just a few more things. I want to say thank you all for joining this afternoon on an absolutely gorgeous Tuesday afternoon here in New Jersey. We welcome the nice weather, and we definitely welcome the content from Carasoft and Palo Alto Networks. Thanks, Joe, so much. If you're here, thank you as well. Today's session is being recorded and will be available through NGSBA website. So ngsba.org under the trainings tab, click webinars. That you will see all of our previous webinars we've had along with the recordings and then all of the upcoming webinars as well. We definitely would love to see you on future webinars. This webinar, for those who stay here or in the room right now, you have stayed for the duration of the presentation, so you will receive one Board Member Academy credit. Just give us a couple business days to have that reflected on your transcript due to it being a manual process. Real quick, the NGSBA cooperative pricing system saves time and money on procurement by eliminating the need for your district to undergo the competitive bidding process. We've done the work already for you, so you can benefit from the low rates today. Visit our website, click on the links. You can see all the products and services included on the NGSBA cooperative pricing system. Joe talked a little about E-rate. Our E-rate consulting is on the contract. We have innovative K-12 classrooms, so classroom technology. We have cybersecurity solutions. We have board management software, so board docs, and then of course telecommunications and IT audits. So definitely check that out. Your district or school's NGSBA membership entitles you to take advantage of all cost-saving benefits of NGSBA's co-op. Districts that have passed a resolution to join the Alliance for Competitive Energy Services, the ACES program, of course, can begin purchasing through the NGSBA cooperative pricing system at any time. If you don't know if you're an ACES member, it's completely free. All you got to do is pass a resolution. But the full list of ACES members is on the website. So what I will do here is really quickly go to our website and I'm just doing a filibuster right now because I definitely want to put the co-op in here. Here we go, everybody. Here you go. There's the co-ops. Website. We definitely want to encourage everyone to go there. If you're an ACES member, you can begin purchasing today. If you're not, just pass a resolution. It's like I said, it's all you got to do is that. And if you don't know if you're an ACES member, that's where you'll find the ACES list. That's it here this afternoon. Again, thank you so much, Joe, for a great presentation. Thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you very, very soon. Have a great Tuesday and have a great week. Thank you all so much. Bye, everyone.